Before we get started, I would like to reiterate the entire reason why you would venture down the path of non-duality. And that is for you to experience immanent peace and ever-present happiness. You could encapsulate that with unconditional love. You need to keep this in mind because, especially at first, this information is going to be extremely counterintuitive to everything you've been conditioned to your whole life. But if you keep an open mind for long enough and gather enough information, you will soon realize that what is being pointed to in non-duality is the truth. And this truth involves nothing else but you. So keep that in mind as well. This is not a religion. This is not spirituality. This is not mysticism or science or psychology or philosophy or anything like that. It's not a belief system. You need absolutely nothing other than yourself to know yourself. Even non-duality in the end is abandoned as false truth, as false knowledge. That is one of the most reassuring, comforting aspects about non-duality, that it even recognizes itself as false knowledge, in which all that remains is you alone. So the only evidence that we use here, the only thing that is absolutely true, has to be identified as you through two sources, one of two sources or both, and that is inherent knowing or direct experience. If you cannot witness or experience the truth or what is being pointed to here directly in your own experience or your inherent knowing, then I want you to discard that information, whatever the information is that you've come upon. I want you to discard that as false knowledge. And that's really what this is. It's all about discovering what is false, relinquishing what's false, and keeping what remains to be true. I've put together a slideshow, a visual representation of the understanding of self-realization, and I'd like to share that with you now. So I'd like to, in the most methodical way possible, is for us to try to understand the mechanics of where we stand from an egoic mind, which most of us do right now, and that's okay. That's probably why you're here watching this video, is to how to get out of your egoic monkey mind and into something more sane. And how do we step back into the contentness of ourself? So most of us operate from what would be a state of mind. An ego is always fluctuating. An ego, because it doesn't have any solidity to it, is constantly coming and going from who and what it thinks it is. And because of that, we encounter what is known as non-permanence. Ego is not permanent. And what we're searching for in our life is permanent contentment. But we continue to reach out into the world that's constantly changing to find permanence. And it is futile. We will continue to fail time after time if we continue to look into the world for ever-present happiness. Again, this is the states of mind fluctuate. They cycle and change. And there is a Sanskrit word for this, which is samsara, which is this it's life in the world, so to speak. This world is constantly changing, and then so is our mind, and so is the idea of what we are and who we are. So we never come to total grips with true understanding of who we are. And this leads to suffering. Anything other than self is considered suffering. And this might sound harsh at the beginning, and that's okay, let it be harsh, because we don't truly understand, we as an ego truly do not understand the immense love of ourself. And so anything that is not immense is suffering relative to the immenseness of ourself. And a lot of this has to come from resisting reality. We resist, we judge, we wish things to be different, and we have to remember that when the ego gets a hold of reality, reality has already happened, because ego comes in after the fact. And then it says it owns reality, or it has a choice to manipulate reality in some fashion, and that's just not the truth. This leads to discontentment, where we just can't get happy. We can't figure out how to get content with ourselves, even if we overcome massive obstacles or obtain wealth or climb the ladder at work. It seems like when we get there to the so-called top of the mountain, there's another mountain to climb before we're there. And it's just that relentless churn of ego. This leads to separation, because we believe these things in life, these objects in life are separate from us, and that in itself is suffering, because when we believe the world to be real and ourself to be unreal, that separates us from ourself, and that is one of the main ways that we suffer. And we have this internal agitation that can come from this. You just never get comfortable within yourself. You always seem like you need to be doing something or on the go or staying busy. You know, being busy in this country is the thing to do. If you're not busy, you're not successful. So just be aware of this. And this can all lead to confusion too, because all we want is to be happy in life, and we're working our tails off to get there, but we never seem to, hit the ball out of the park or run into the end zone and spike the ball. It just seems like there's never enough. So everything known, felt, and perceived by you funnels back to what we call the root of I. This I, there's an I at the center of everything that you know about the world and about yourself. And everything funnels back into this why, or this I. And so it's understanding what this I is. So let's walk through some examples. I am a man or a woman. I am tall or short. I own a bike. I excel or stink at math. I am a kind or harmful person. I am a body and mind. I am, you fill in the blank. I am an engineer. I am a husband. I am a father. You can name just all day long. Everything has to do with you, this I. And there is two pieces mixed in this I-ness that we refer to ourselves to. The I, or I am, is the piece of reality, and everything that we add on to it is known as our adjuncts. right? An adjunct is something that's added on to whatever the primary source is. So in our case, I am a man, or I'm tall, or I'm good at math, or I'm a kind person. All of this is the man, the tall, the math, all of that. Those are my adjuncts that I've added on to myself. And where the problem lies is that we step over our true self, our I or our I am, and we identify with all of our adjuncts. And so all of these adjuncts are just what we've added up over time, over the course of our life. And some of these things come and go. And, I used to be an athlete, but now I'm getting older, I'm a little out of shape, so maybe I'm not that anymore. And so it's just an example of how we're trying to find solidity in life, permanence in life, so that we can understand who we truly are. But what we really do here is we're not necessarily concerned with the adjuncts. The adjuncts they're fine. We just let them be as they are. But what we're really after is, who is this I? Who is this I that's at the center of everything? We never stop to ask that question, ever. And yet we refer to it in basically every sentence or every thought that comes out of our mouth or our mind. And so what we do here is we just ask, what is this? What is this I? This egoic I. When I say egoic I, it's egoic I, or the adjunct mixed I, is this mixing of reality, which we'll say is I, this permanence of I, mixed with our barrage of adjuncts we've added to I, and these are constantly changing and coming and going and fluctuating states of mind. And so this is why we don't really know who we are, because we're identifying with things that come and go, and we've stepped over ourself, that which is truly permanent. And this egoic I thinks it's the doer. It thinks it's the knower. It thinks it's the thinker. It thinks that it does everything in life. And this is where it gets really perplexing, is that, and this has been demonstrated with 100% accuracy in scientific examples or experiments, is that the ego comes into play 6 to 8 seconds after things have already been decided and things are already done. An ego is an afterthought of reality. And so it can't do anything, but it thinks it is everything. It thinks it's at the source of everything that's going on in this life. And that has been proven to not be true. So this yellow box here is what we could say is the ego. It's the states of mind. It's how we are identifying with ourselves right now, with this real piece, and all of these unreal pieces of ourselves added on to ourselves. A way of being is self, is I am, is awareness. And this way of being is permanence. And this is truly what we're seeking our whole life, is to be permanently content, permanently happy. And in this understanding of ourselves, and through the mechanism we're going to go through here in a few moments, you experience this permanent silence, this permanent stillness, and it's not in your mind. It's a presence that's constantly here. It's constantly here with you. And it's the beautiful aspects that you've been looking for your whole life. It is the peace. And peace is non-resistance. Peace is this ever available, totally unconditionally accepting. That's what peace is. It just lets things be as they are. And that is a beautiful way of being. You encounter happiness. Happiness is contentment, and wholeness. Ness just means it's the presence of. So contentmentness is really how you experience it when you start to dissolve the ego and experience self. And love is the unity of yourself and others. You realize there is no others. There's only the love of yourself. And this is accomplished through self-inquiry by answering the question, who am I? And when I say accomplished, this is where it becomes opposite of what we know how to accomplish something. This is where it becomes counterintuitive, because we're so used to making efforts to gain something that we do not understand what it means to let go and to relinquish. And what are we relinquishing? All of our adjuncts. We're realizing that all of our adjuncts are the false reality, and that we ourselves is the true reality. And so the more you relinquish everything that was talked about earlier, like a man, or I'm tall and I'm short, or I'm a husband or a father, you relinquish all of this stuff. This isn't you. This is life happening as that. So it doesn't mean that I give up fatherhood or I give up my relationship with my wife. It just means now there's just fathering is happening. Engineering is happening. Friending is happening. Everything is ing. Everything becomes a verb. So it all is still here. It's just you aren't those adjuncts. You are yourself, your I am. And what self-inquiry does is it helps you see what all of those are, and it helps you relinquish. And again, this is a bit counterintuitive, because we gain by releasing, by relinquishing. And the more you relinquish, and the more you release, and the more you let go, the more you experience this permanent way of being. And that is literally everything we've been after our entire life. That is what I refer to as ever-present happiness. And so this green box is what we're working towards. The yellow box is what we currently are. And we understand that, and that's okay with whatever's going on in your life. We ask the question, who is this I at the center of everything? Who is this? What is this? And what happens is through self-inquiry, and when you move from the yellow box to the green box, you pull this I. You realize that this egoic I is actually this infinite self of being. It is who your true nature is. It is this ever open-armed, totally comfortable, yet with a tad of childhood wonder, that is just an overall sense of awe. And so self-inquiry is turning our attention away from our attributes. So right now our attention is heading off into the world. It's paying our attention to our mind and our body and everything else into the world. And what we do is we turn that attention away from our adjuncts and we turn it towards ourself. And we keenly abide with absolute attentiveness to ourself, to our I am. We just turn our attention away from the world and we turn it to our own being. And we rest in being. And we become familiar with what this means. And this is where I was talking about earlier in the introduction. This is where you experience knowledge directly, truthful knowledge, real knowledge. And you know it inherently. And you start to understand what these qualities of self are, so that it becomes easier and easier to turn away from the world, from your adjuncts, and easier to tend to these beautiful qualities of yourself. So this is where most of us get hung up, and that's okay. Let it be hung up. Let yourself get hung up here. It may take a while, but check it out. Watch your mind play. Watch it do everything it can to want to move away from the reality, the beautiful pieces of yourself, and tend to everything other than that. And this is where we can turn to academia, if we'd like to, where quantum physics, neuroscience, philosophy, psychology, it all points to what's being discussed here. Utilize those as tools with knowing that in the end you're going to discard all of that. And religion too, Christianity or Hinduism or Buddhism, they all point to this. They all point to I am. So most of us, being Western mindsets, are going to have a lot of validation to overcome, to rest within ourselves, to turn within during self-inquiry, to answer the question, who am I? And that's okay. It took me a long time. And the most confronting piece is that you believed yourself to be this ego that's doing this whole life, that's always done this life, that's made every decision in your life, and you are breaking down that illusion. You'll see that this ego is only been an illusion, and yourself is the true reality. And what is real perplexing is that the ego's source is self. So that's what you're really doing in self-inquiry. When you're giving up and relinquishing all of these attributes, you're really taking this ego and just bringing it back into yourself, and then it just dissolves into yourself and you realize there was never one to begin with. And so the yellow box is what is referred to as false reality. This is a sense of ourself that we can never really understand. It adds all sorts of confusion and separation and general suffering. And there's absolutely no evidence for it. Like I was mentioned earlier, all of Western academia cannot find an ego still today. They claim it's in all sorts of parts of our brain, regions in our brain, and these regions are turning on and shutting off and dimming down and brightening up, and it's non-permanent. Yet we know we've always been permanent. I have always been I am. When I look back into my life, over the course of my life, there's always been something who I am, who's never changed within me. My body type might get large or small depending on what I'm doing. I might gain knowledge, I might lose it. I might have friends, they might come and go. All of these things come and go, but there's been one thing within you that you absolutely know has never left you, and that is yourself. So the green box is reality, and your existence is the evidence. Yourself is the evidence. The inherent knowing that you exist is all the evidence that is needed here. Non-duality builds everything off of this one piece of evidence, your existence. And don't let this scare you. Like, we do not talk about our existence or our awareness in this hemisphere. And yet, it's happening right now. It takes absolutely no effort for you to exist and for you to be aware. That's where this is going. That's what it wants. That's what the message of non-duality wants, is for your life every day, permanently, to be as effortlessness as it's taking you right now to exist and to be aware that you exist. Do everything you can to understand what's being pointed to here, and I will help you as much as I possibly can on this journey. Take care.